When most Americans start planning a trip to France, their itinerary often follows a familiar path. A few days in Paris, a stop in Nice, Cannes, maybe even Saint-Tropez, and on the surface, it all sounds dreamy, beautiful, familiar. But here is the truth that no one talks about. These places were not necessarily chosen. They were marketed to you by magazines, movies, influencers, and Instagram algorithms. Fabulous people, welcome to the podcast for all the babes who create their own life trends. My name is Anastasia, and this podcast is all about inspiring you to relentlessly pursue your biggest dreams and live your most authentic, abundant life. If you start planning a trip to France, you've probably typed the usual questions into Google or ChatGPT. Where to go in France or best France itinerary? And the answers: Paris, Nice, Cannes, probably Saint-Tropez, all beautiful, all expected. But what if I told you that there is a version of France that most people never get to see? And not because it is hard to reach, but because so few people talk about it. As someone who lives in Europe and runs a travel agency for American travelers with a French partner, I see this happening all the time. People are chasing the version of France they were sold and missing the one they'd actually fall in love with. This episode is your invitation to go deeper, to explore France beyond Paris, where the rhythm slows, the views open up, and the crowds disappear. I'll share some of my favorite hidden gems, places like Gordes, Cassis, Aix-en-Provence, and a few others that barely show up on typical French travel guides, but leave a lifelong impression. So whether this is your first time planning a trip to France or your fifth, this is the episode that will change what you think a French itinerary should look like. Because the most unforgettable places in France aren't always the famous ones. They're just the ones no one told you about. When most Americans start planning a trip to France, their itinerary often follows a familiar path. A few days in Paris, a stop in Nice, Cannes, maybe even Saint-Tropez, and on the surface, it all sounds dreamy, beautiful, familiar. But here is the truth that no one talks about. These places were not necessarily chosen. They were marketed to you by magazines, movies, influencers, and Instagram algorithm. And just to be clear, this isn't about avoiding Paris. Paris is incredible. It's about not stopping at Paris. It's about realizing that the most soul-stirring, breathtaking parts of France often exist just a bit beyond the spotlight. It's the France where time slows. You won't find it in the headlines or most influencer guides, but it's there, in the quiet hilltop villages, the untouristed coastlines, the moments that feel like you've stepped inside a painting or a poem. And I'm not saying this as some romantic fantasy. I'm saying this because I myself experienced it so many times. And those of you who are watching this episode, you guys can tell I'm actually in one of these fantasies right now, literally filming this podcast in the middle of a French village. And can you hear the calm? Can you feel the connection? These are the type of places where time slows down and allows you to truly sink in into the present moment. Now, I know some of you are going to say, or a lot of you are going to say, okay, Anastasia, enough teasing us. Give us some of those hidden gems in France. Tell us where to go. And I want to start with one of my absolute favorite places in France, Cassis, a small harbor town on the Mediterranean that lives quietly in the shadow of Saint-Tropez. But honestly, it's even more breathtaking. It's still on the Riviera, but it's not the Riviera most people imagine. Here, mornings start with a hike through the Calanques, towering white limestone cliffs that plunge into the sea, forming narrow bays and hidden swimming coves. If you've never heard of them, you are not alone. But picture this. Dramatic cliffs, sparkling turquoise waters so clear you can see the ripples dancing across the sandy bottom, and quiet inlets where you can swim, sunbathe, or arrive by boat like you've discovered something secret. In the afternoon, you can dive straight into the sea, sip rosé by the harbor, or spend the entire day on the boat discovering hidden beaches. And then in the evening, dine at a restaurant tucked inside a vineyard just minutes from town, savoring delicious French dishes paired with local wines, surrounded by vines and the quiet sounds of nature. It is one of the most stunning coastlines in all of France, and somehow it is still flying under the radar. And if Cassis is the coastal escape where sun, sea, and salt water define the rhythm, then Gordes is its mountain counterpart. It doesn't trend, it doesn't market itself, but it's one of the most breathtaking places I've ever seen. The golden stone buildings, the way the light settles over the valley, the silence. It's part of the experience. It's not just scenic, it's soul-filling. I'm actually filming this episode from Gordes, and with those of you who are watching this podcast, I wanted to share this breathtaking village and just a little bit of its atmosphere and ambiance because I am so in love with this place. And if you're the type of traveler who loves to explore, this village has so much to offer. You can wander the streets, visit different galleries, boutiques, Château de Gordes, which is 11th century Gordes castle, located right in the heart of the town. You can explore nearby villages, visit fresh markets, do wine tastings, olive oil tastings, go hiking, and enjoy some of the most incredible French cuisine paired with local wines, with some of the most breathtaking views you'll find anywhere. Most travelers build their trips around big names. Paris, Louvre, Eiffel Tower, maybe a stop in Nice, a museum here, a monument there, and it is all so beautiful, yes, but it is also predictable and often exhausting. What travelers don't realize is how powerful it is to build contrast into a trip, to go from crowds to calm, from fast-paced to slow and spacious. When you include places like Gordes or Cassis, not just as side stops, but as intentional anchors into your itinerary, the entire trip shifts. It becomes more dynamic, more emotionally rich. You return home remembering how it felt to sit in silence, to swim in stillness, to reconnect with beauty you weren't expecting. And this is exactly why people from all over the world choose my Fabulous Vita travel agency. We don't just book logistics, we design flow. We don't just recommend destinations, we curate how the entire journey feels. It's not about stuffing your days with more. It's about giving you the space to actually feel where you are. Because the most unforgettable trips aren't always the busiest. They're the ones that leave you changed. And as my final words of wisdom, if you've already been to France, go deeper. And if it's going to be your first time in France, don't just follow the crowds. Because some of the most breathtaking places in France aren't famous. They're simply unforgettable. And if you're just as passionate as I am about exploring this incredible world, don't just listen, join me. Make sure to smack that subscribe button for more Stay Fabulous series. Whether you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, let's explore this incredible world together, one unforgettable story at a time. I still can't believe I got a chance to film this episode for you here in the middle of French countryside. I am so looking forward to talk to you in my next episode. Until then, and always, stay fabulous.